Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everyone, it's Debbie Potts, and I am excited to have Dr. Terry Wahls, medical doctor, on the podcast today to talk about nutrients required for an effective immune system function. She sent this blog out May 20th, 2020, and I just wanted to share with you some of this information that's not always easy to get on mainstream media, and it's really frustrating to me that we just can't get this information on the news because it doesn't make billions of dollars. So it's very confusing what to do to take care of the whole you. And when I keep talking about self-care to improve your health and to improve your gut health, which improves your immune system and builds resiliency. So as the show is called the Low Carb Athlete, it's also a health building podcast. And my passion and purpose is to help you improve your ability to burn fat, improve your health at a cellular level. So a lot of talk about the mitochondria, and also to improve your performance. So Mondays, I typically share an interview with someone that covers one of the elements of the holistic method. And then Wednesdays, I'll start back recording this summer on Wellness Wednesdays. And then Fridays, more performance-based coaching on Fitness Fridays that'll restart this summer as well. I am currently moving from Seattle to Escondido, California, northern San Diego. And on June 18th, the movers come and get our stuff. We're putting it all in storage, and we're moving to a rental for 3 months until we find a new home to live in that's perfect for biking in the mountains right out our door and close to drive on the weekends to the ocean and go for a nice run, and finding an outdoor swimming pool and triathlon club for me to train for potential races in the future, just because I like to swim, bike, and run, as well lift weights and do yoga. And the past few months, it's been interesting. I always try to look at the positive in everything, and also find that everything happens for a reason. And what is the gift? What's the learning opportunity in this situations we've had this year in 2020? Because there's a lot of craziness going on, a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, and what I keep saying, a lot of choices. And we have had a lot of choices, and I think what the choice should be is something that would be the learning opportunity here. What is a gift? And it is to choose to be healthy, choose for improving your health by going to bed, getting a good night's sleep, choosing real healthy food that fuels your cells, that gives you vitality, gives you energy, and helps improve your immune cell function. I also believe that it's forcing us to create more pauses in our day, and forced us to stay at home for a few months and really learn about your family dynamics, learn about your spouse, your kids, and really strengthen those relationships, learn how to communicate with each other as you're with each other all the day long. But also, for me personally, it was slowing down and not have a schedule that I've had. I've already slowed down the last year, but in the past, as a personal trainer, since I was out of college, I've always gotten up really early and started work at 5:30, 6 a.m., training clients or working out and teaching clients and classes through the day and working at nighttime. And this is my first time since college that I didn't have to get up early in the morning and go anywhere. I've had some coaching clients as I train and my clients on some people on Zoom on the morning, and I also do health coaching with people. And so I'm 7:30, I have some clients. Well, now I get up and we've really enjoyed doing yoga. I was doing this guy on YouTube, Travis Elliott, and he had some free videos on there, and they kind of get you sucked into signing up for their Inner Dimension TV that I paid, I think it was $120 for a whole year. So we just recently did that, but I fell in love with yoga, which I've been missing because I used to teach yoga and do yoga 5 times a week. But when you're doing 5 days a week of yoga on top of teaching spin class 5 times a week, training a swim, bike, run about 20 hours a week, and lifting weights, it's a little much. So I haven't done yoga for a while. And so one of the gifts in this crazy time got me on my yoga mat. And so we started doing 30-minute yoga to 45, some days an hour, and going for a run or a bike ride or a walk afterwards. And then lunchtime, get outside. We were going for a walk at lunchtime or for a run if we didn't go in the morning, and a bike ride depending on the weather. And then at nighttime we started doing Yin Yoga, which I think is amazing for athletes. We just, got into this 30 minutes that you can hold these poses 2 to 3 minutes. And Travis Elliott does such a good job of being kind of your life coach and giving these motivational quotes that I don't know how he ever remembers them all, but he just does a really nice work on getting you to slow down. And I think it's ideal for athletes and for those busy people, as we all are, usually that type A driven individual that listens to this show, that we always like to do more. So as I'm talking here, before Dr. Wahls comes on the show, I just want to talk about some things that we'll dive into about your immune system and how to be healthy enough to be resilient. So if you do get a virus, you will be able to fight it off. And some things we want to look at are what we talk about all the time on the show. It's called low carb athletes. So we want to always work in nutritional therapy, and as an FDN practitioner, we work on blood sugar regulation. We want to train the body to burn fat, not carbohydrates. So we've talked for years, 10 years, about being fat adapted, flipping that switch to being a fat burner versus a carb burner, and improving our metabolic efficiency when we are exercising. So we're burning higher percentage of fat at higher heart rates. And so we can stay in that fat burning range when we work out. We have more awareness if you do a metabolic efficiency test where that crossover point is, where you switch from mostly fat fuel to carbohydrate fuel. And also what to eat based on your metabolic typing and your genetic report. Are you best eating more protein and fat, or a mixed ratio that you have balance of carbs, fat, and protein, or you are okay eating more carbohydrates so you can still burn fat? We are all different. We do know that we should avoid sugar, and most people need to avoid grains and high glycemic foods. So Dr. Wahls will talk about, diet and lifestyle to lower our risk of complications that impact our immune system, and lower our defense or self-defense mechanism to fight off these viruses. But blood sugar control is number 1. Number 2, stop eating foods with added sugars like breads, pastas, and other high glycemic foods. Focus on eating more non-starchy vegetables. Stop smoking. And those living in high air pollution to have, windows open, have increased air quality indoors. So having a HEPA air filter if you can. But we'll talk about, reducing blood sugar to focus on getting the nutrients from real food. So having vitamin C, vitamin A, zinc, sulfur, omega-3 fatty acids we'll talk about. So I'll let her dive into the importance of real food nutrients, as well as vitamin D and apple cider vinegar and organ meat that I keep reading about, but I just can't do that, liver and onions. So we'll dive into all this today and what she does and how she thinks vitamin C, IV, and what other treatment we can do when we do get coronavirus. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And I'll bring Dr. Wahls on the show. We only could get 30 minutes with her, so I won't talk much. I'll just let her go on and talk about our immune system. Also head to my website, debbiepotts.net, as I do have in a few weeks a new ebook called The Immune System 101 that I just looked up all the definitions of how the immune system works, your troops and your weapons, and what we need to do to improve our innate and adaptive immune system as we have it. We're born with it. We just sometimes need to strengthen it a little bit. And I keep thinking of the immune system as your players on a football team, that we need to improve our conditioning, our players, say your defense team going into the Super Bowl, we've got the playoffs, and those guys need to do a lot of training, a lot of cross training, a lot of recovery and repair, and they need to eat right, sleep right. They need to do some big strength training moves and sport specific football moves to be ready for game day, say Super Bowl. So same with our immune system. We really want to get all of our key players of our immune system ready for that race day. So when you do get the virus, this coronavirus, that you are ready to have your team defend itself, defend you, so your self-defense. So, you know, one of my favorite products is Athletic Greens, and they had a great quote in promoting the Athletic Greens, but just your best offense is a great defense. And I just believe that we really can improve our immune system by taking the 8 elements of the holistic method that I created over the past 10 years and wrote my book that's on Amazon about the 8 elements. There's a great chapter on each of these items that we keep talking about, but I wrote it in 2015, 2014. And the elements are nutrition, exercise, sleep, and stress reduction, movement, mobility. We've got digestion and gut health, which is your 80% of your immune system's in your gut. And then, of course, hydration, drinking more water. So many people are drinking too much coffee and too much alcohol and not enough water, filtered, clean water with probably electrolytes, adding sea salt in it to hydrate your cells. And then, of course, happiness. I keep trying to post on social media. What are you happy about today? What are you doing this weekend for fun? What are you going to do to play, laugh, and bring joy into your day? Because the news is horrible. Every morning I turn on the news while I'm making the coffee, and it's freaking depressing. It makes me angry. I'm in Seattle now. We got this ridiculous stuff going on in Capitol Hill, and people taking over the city. And we made BBC News. So I rather just turn off the news, watch BBC if we watch anything, and then turn on Sonos and have, like today, we've been playing the Paris Cafe music station. So really important to take care of yourself, bring laughter, bring joy, positive vibes, positive attitude, positive energy is one of my mantras. And as you can see in the video today, all my artwork is gone because we are packed up ready to move next week. But think of that: positive vibes, positive attitude, positive energy. 3 good words to say to yourself, and try to work on breathing. Even 3 ohms at the end of yoga practice, really humming, gargling, helps strengthen that vagal nerve. Even putting that parasympathetic vagal tone oil you can get from Vibrant Blue Oils that Jody talked about right behind your ear, down here on your vagal nerve, to help stimulate that vagal nerve and help us shift into more parasympathetic nervous system state. So I will wait for the next minute. Dr. Wahls is coming on, so I'm going to push pause and I'll come back with Dr. Wahls. Here we go. All right, I've got Dr. Wahls on my show again because we need to get more of this information out there, talk about how nutritional therapy works, how our immune system works. And Dr. Terry Wahls, you've been doing lots of research, been very involved in the world health right now and trying to get this message out. So thanks to come back on our show and give us a little update on what we can do.
Yeah, actually today the Institute for Functional Medicine is having their annual international conference, so I've been listening to that as well. And there's never been a time when it's been more relevant for us to improve our resilience And the best way to do resilience is through our health behaviors. This is all about diet quality, all about what we're doing to manage stress, to have intermittent bouts of stress followed by rest and recovery, physical activity, social connections, spiritual beliefs, cleaning up your environment. All of those things improve our functional resilience, which have a huge impact then on our immune cells.
Could you describe or explain what resilience actually means? For me, people they hear these terms like they're not really sure what it is.
So I'll give you an example here using my sketch from my daughter. So we have this lovely piece of paper. We'll fold it in half. And so resilience really reflects our ability to bend and distort that and come back to normal. So it's how well we encounter changes in our environments that adjust the status quo, and our ability to biologically get back to a more normal function. And so if you are really rigid and you get stress in the environment, it'll break. Your bones will break. They're really very rigid. If you have a lot of stiffness in your skin, that's going to tear much more likely than if it's nice and flexible. If your blood vessels are flexible versus rigid as pipes. And so biologically, you want to be able to withstand some stress and then to get back to normal functioning. And the more capable we are of withstanding that mild to moderate stress and then promptly getting back to normal function, the more resilient that system is. And the same would go true for a ecosystem. Because we have stress in our grasslands, in our woodlands, in our deserts, and the healthy ecosystem can have some stress and will bounce back and recover. The unhealthy ecosystem will not bounce back. It will take a far longer, and it may not be able to bounce back at all.
So with you as doctor, and you're researching a lot about the virus, and you've talked for years about the Wahls protocol and how to heal ourselves with proper nutrition. What have you learned the past few months, putting all of your years of expertise together, what we should be doing right now?
Well, there's some really interesting papers that are coming out about the experience in China, where the virus originated. And they looked at, compared two cohorts of population. One is a cohort that got just conventional medicine, the best conventional medicine that's possible. The other got conventional medicine and Chinese traditional medicine, which places more focus on botanicals and on diet quality. And so treatment improved the course of course, both cohorts, but the Chinese traditional medicine folks did a little bit better. That tells me, that there's a role for diet quality and probably a role for selected use of botanicals. In my clinical practice and watching what the other functional medicine clinical folks are experiencing, and this is also true of what was being reported in Italy, particularly in northern Italy, that the people who had hidden inflammation were much more likely to have a more severe disease course. And so, who has the hidden inflammation? High blood sugar, severe obesity, people living in environments that have poor water quality and poor air quality, and of course smokers. Those groups really stand out. And then I would also make the observation that, part of the reason I think that this virus has been have such a large impact is that larger and larger proportions of our population have this hidden inflammation because of their chronic disease states, because of their poor diet, because of tobacco use, or because of the declining air quality that's happening in certain regions of the world.
Yeah, so hidden inflammation, I know in FDN as practitioners, we do functional lab testing as a lot of functional medicine people do to identify hidden internal stressors that impact the whole person. And so I would think because their inflammation is hidden, a lot of people probably are unaware that they have inflammation in the body. Is that common?
You know, I think what people are aware is that they're fatigued and they're having to use a lot of energy drinks to get through the day, or a lot of coffee. They're aware that, you know, everyone's a lot more irritated. Their colleagues at work, their kids, their spouse. So the irritability has gone up because we don't have as much resilience in our brain, the executive part of our brain that can pull back that irritation, remind me that, oh, you know, my spouse is going through a hard time, you know, her mother is quite ill, so yes, I'm going to cut her some slack. And so they're often aware of symptoms that they may have gone to see their conventional, you know, healthcare provider for multiple times, but, you know, the conventional approach hasn't found an effective solution for those symptoms. Yeah, if they're brewing an autoimmune problem, that may be going on for the next 10 to 15 years. And, you know, actually the average number of physicians that the autoimmune patient sees before they get a diagnosis is 8 different physicians. As, you know, their symptoms get steadily worse, the hidden inflammation is getting worse. They know they aren't feeling well, or they're having more pain, more fatigue, more irritability. And finally someone says, I see your joints are hot, we'll do an RA and a rheumatoid factor, and you have rheumatoid arthritis. Or they do an MRI and they discover they have MS. Or they do a GI scope and discover they have inflammatory bowel disease.
Yeah. So a lot of these signs and symptoms of inflammation, they're going to decrease our resiliency. And so we're going to have probably not as strong immune system. So as you say, and what I've felt like the last few months, eventually we'll get exposed to coronavirus and any virus, but we need to always kind of build our troops and weapons now. So when we become exposed, as we try to go back to our, you know, real life, our new normal, what can we do now to take responsibility, ownership, and take charge of our health?
We want to improve our resilience. So this our functional resilience. And so this is about the quality of your diet. So everybody knows that I'm, you know, very fond of the Wahls diet, my modified Paleo diet. But it, you know, if you want to be a vegetarian, a vegan, if you want to do a ketogenic diet, there are a variety of diets that you can do. But clearly, you got to get rid of the sugar, the processed foods. Eat more non-starchy vegetables. So that's a, you know, a basic principle you could follow, whether you're a vegetarian, a paleo, a ketogenic eater, someone who's intermittently fasting. Those concepts of no sugar, no processed foods, more vegetables, particularly non-starchy ones, that'll be really very helpful. A meditative practice. So it is appropriate because we cannot predict the future as easily as you could have a year ago, because so many things have changed.
Yeah.
That creates anxiety. That is appropriate. That is normal. That is biologically correct. So don't beat up yourself like, you know, I am feeling anxious. The strategies I'm talking to my tribe about is we have to look for things that we can be grateful for. I also like to put in the frame, okay, this is happening. I may not like it, but it happened. What is there that I can learn from this? What are the good things that are happening as a result? So, well.
Yeah. And I just was saying this in the intro as she just froze. We lost you for a second, Dr. Wahls, but I was saying the same thing about being grateful and the learning opportunity of each of these experiences we're going through right now. One moment. Okay. So we just lost Dr. Wahls, but she's back on. But you're just talking about what I said in the intro is what the gift is. What is a learning opportunity in these horrible situations in our world right now? And you're just starting to talk about the same thing.
Yeah, so some of the gifts. A lot of folks are cooking for the first time. That was great.
Yeah.
They were having to decide to be more flexible about the cooking strategy. Like, okay, going to the store is really difficult, so I'm going to take my recipe and improvise with what I've got. So that is really wonderful to see, this increased flexibility. They're having to talk to their children about, yes, these school events got canceled. It's very disappointing. There are things that happen in life. Life is not fair, but we continue to go on. And so that is incredibly helpful, that we are acknowledging to our children that, yeah, things change, and we can still go on and have a good life. You know, on a planetary basis, we saw the emission of carbon dioxide drop for a couple months because we all there was a lot less driving, a lot less flying, and very interesting articles that analyzed how many millions of lives were saved by the intentional decision to begin mitigation and having people stay home. And then when you go back out, do the social distancing, wearing masks. And so that was, to me, very, very interesting. And then the other thing that happened is we all had to learn different ways of doing our work, different ways of educating. And so, at the university, I had to think very deeply, like, okay, how are we going to keep teaching the students, supporting the research? How do we continue seeing patients? And so there was a radical change in processes as all of the organizations were having to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, I think I was just saying in the intro that, I got back into yoga and doing vinyasa yoga in the morning and going outside for walking, so way more, and slowing down. My schedule, originally is personal training for 25, 30 years. And so I'd always work at 6 in the morning. Now it's so nice to have this new schedule for me. It's kind of a blessing in disguise. But,
absolutely. So I've been much more attentive to, I have to go outside, walk around, take my dog for short walks a couple times during the day to get that sunlight exposure. Because I normally bike to and from work. And so, I'm absolutely committed to getting outside so I can sleep well at night.
I know I have clients, just get up, go for a walk. And especially working at home, I think it's so essential mentally as well as to help you sleep at night, is to get outside and get that first, exposure to that sunrise and getting fresh air before you stay at home and work all day. I think it's so hard for people. I don't know how people just get up and shower, get ready, and just stay in their house. It's like, just go stand in your driveway, come back in and start your day. Mentally, you need to do that.
It's a very helpful strategy for so many reasons. I've realized that because this, like everyone else, hugely stressful. The change in trying to figure all this stuff out for work and a research program. And I know if I get under severe stress, my face pain turns on. So I'm like, well, I have to really take superb care of myself now in terms of meditative practice, my exercise and self-care rituals. I fared quite well. I made it through that 2 months, no flare of my face pain. But I'm also quite certain that had I not up to my game on that self-care, I would have had a flare of pain.
Well, plus you've been super busy with working more, researching, and probably working longer hours and more stress on researching all the updates.
Yes, I've been working more hours than usual for all of those reasons.
Well, I know I want to dive into a little bit on your blog. People can go to terrywahls.com and look at the different blogs and updates on how to stay healthy and how to improve your immune system. And you wrote an interesting blog, Nutrients Required for Effective Immune Systems, pointing out that eventually we need to be exposed to this virus to get it to slow down. And so kind of is your take on the virus to, better to get it if you are strong and help, bring the numbers down?
So actually, I prefer that people not get it. But I think realistically, what I hear from the state of Iowa, in most, New York, California, the projections are from the epidemiologists that 50 to 90% of folks are going to get the virus before it burns itself out. So there are two things at play. One is when you get the virus, you want to be as healthy as possible, so you make it more likely that you'll have a mild case. You also want to get the virus at a slow enough rate, so if you do happen to need the hospital, there are beds in the hospital that can help you. Because if there are no beds, no ICU beds, then what we've seen in several countries around the world is people end up dying at home because they can't get the hospital care. So from a public health standpoint, we're trying to slow the transmission. I absolutely support that. And then from an individual standpoint, I want people to be as healthy as possible, because we're encountering viruses all of the time. We're encountering a variety of bacteria all of the time, which we can handle most often if we have a healthy immune system, if we are functionally resilient. Then we can likely handle those encounters. But I certainly would not tell people to go out and intentionally get the virus, because you could certainly discover that you may not do well. Here at the hospital, we have some children, and we have young adults who are in the hospital and who had a very challenging course.
You just don't know how you're going to respond, if it's, genetics, if it's, if you're a healthy individual and your immune system's strong, but what if you react poorly and some people don't really have any symptoms? It's just so much of the unknown.
And if you look at over all of the history of the human race, there's always a arms race between the microbes and their random mutations that will occasionally make them more virulent, and our random mutations that make us more resistant to those infecting microbes. And you don't know where you line up in terms of your genetic mutations. Well, what I'm trying to tell people is, if you got a poor diet and lifestyle, it's more likely that you're going to have big trouble. But there will be a few people who have the genetic mutations that are not well suited to fight this particular virus, and will be much more likely to succumb.
Which genetic mutations would those be? Do they know specifically which genetic SNPs?
Well, no, because it's a new virus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. Always the herd is culled in terms of the reproductive success, that whoever has the genes that are somewhat less effective in this current environment will have less reproductive success. And if the particular gene imparts a failure rate of 0.1% or more, that gene will diminish in the population. If it increases the survival rate by 0.1%, that will increase in the population. So over, the evolution of life for the last 3.5 billion years, that's allowed the species to get more finely tuned to the environment and to become more complex, and a more complex ecosystem in the body, a more complex ecosystem in the environment. So this has been going on forever. The waxing and waning of epidemics and pandemics have happened since recorded history. It will continue to happen. It's part of that evolutionary pressure that always exists between the pathogens and the things they infect, and between predators and prey. So I don't think there's any escaping it, but you can certainly make it more likely that you'll do well by improving your health overall.
And you talked about that in your blog and on social media. You have a lot of good information on consuming nutrients that support immune cell function as vitamin C, A, zinc, sulfur, omega-3s, and you talk about liver, oysters, mussels are great for zinc. So can we touch a little bit on what we should be eating to improve our immune system and what supplements we should be looking at?
So, on that blog post, I talked a lot about you want to have plenty of organ meat for that vitamin A, but not too much. So I talk about 6 to 8 ounces a day. I also encourage a lot of greens. Now, greens are a little bit of a challenge because I'm a little nervous about having raw food right now due to the fact that we don't know if this is transmitted orally or not. People sometimes get cholera-like symptoms with severe vomiting and diarrhea, which makes me think that there may be an oral transmission. If I'm having greens, I'm making cooked greens, or I'm having greens out of my yard and I'm fine with those. And greens are a great source of vitamin C. And also citrus would be very good. Vitamin C will break down when you cook it, so you don't want to cook your vegetables too much. And if you can grow your own salad, that would be helpful. Fruit that you can peel, such as an orange, lemons, that would be also very good. Another great source of vitamin C is sauerkraut. So I try to have sauerkraut every day with my meals. And the sauerkraut, in addition to the vitamin C, gives you a lot of great probiotic bacteria. And remember that the bacteria, particularly the health-promoting ones, speak to our immune cells, help get them regulated and balanced so they can do a better job of protecting me without being, say, overzealous. Mm-hmm. So to that end, I have people start with a forkful of sauerkraut and work their way up to the amount of sauerkraut they enjoy. I happen to enjoy it a lot, so I'll have a couple cups a day. And for many, it is an acquired taste. Now, in terms of the zinc and the copper, so zinc is absorbed and copper are absorbed through the same receptors. And they compete with one another, so you want to have both zinc and copper in your diet. We know that zinc's particularly helpful for protecting you against the coronavirus. And taking a zinc supplement for a couple months, I think is a great idea. It gets you to be sure that you're not zinc depleted. However, taking zinc more than 2 or 3 months gets complicated because I don't want to create a copper deficiency. Because that creates another big problem. Yeah. So zinc for a couple months is good. Then if you go beyond that, you'll need to follow your zinc and copper ratios and probably be supplemented both by zinc and copper. This is where food is so helpful because, liver, mussels, oysters, they're all a great source of zinc and copper, and they're in the biologic ratios that we expect. So eating liver, as I said, 6 to 8 ounces a week is a great strategy to be sure that you're getting zinc, but you're also getting copper.
What about the apple cider vinegar you mentioned? How's that beneficial?
Oh, yeah. So that's really pretty interesting. There are some theories that if we're these inside the cell is a little more alkaline, that seems to make it easier for us to kill the virus. And so if you could take like Alka-Seltzer Gold, which is sodium potassium bicarbonate, and that alkalinizes you. But also interestingly, if you take apple cider vinegar or lemon juice, lime juice, how our body metabolizes those compounds, the apple cider vinegar or the lemon lime juice, we end up being a little more alkaline. So I personally really like to take the apple cider vinegar. I'll have that before meals. I'll mix that with water and sip on it. And again, it's food-based, so I'm really very comfortable with that. If you're going to do sodium or potassium bicarbonate, now, and particularly if you're on any meds, you're going to have to check in with your medical team about whether or not that's appropriate for you. But your medical team's going to should feel fine about you drinking some lime juice in your water, or adding apple cider vinegar to your salads, or adding some apple cider vinegar to the water that you drink.
Yeah, I haven't done that for a while, but it's always a benefit. So many benefits of apple cider vinegar overall. So vitamin C's always been talked a lot about, and I was laughing yesterday on the news in my car. I was listening to the news radio channel, and they were talking about vitamin C IV to help, high doses to help with coronavirus when people have it in their treatment. So have you found, we've talked for the last few months about vitamin C, but finally the news is finally mentioning anything about nutrition.
Yeah, so the vitamin C, again, I think taking it additionally, like 500 milligrams twice a day. You could take 500 milligrams 4 times a day. That slightly increases the risk of kidney stones. So again, you have to be mindful or cautious about that. But it does certainly help the body tolerate the oxidative stress that happens when you're trying to kill the virus. It's very helpful that way. And we have a long history with its safety. We know that humans can't make vitamin C. So when we are stressed with an infection or fighting a virus, we consume a lot more vitamin C in that process. And so that's why, particularly during exposure to a virus, a higher dose of vitamin C can be helpful. Again, going back to China, there were some interesting reports coming out of using intravenous vitamin C when people came to the hospital as a result of their infection.
Yeah, I heard that. And do we need to be aware of glutathione, antioxidants, the mitochondria stress on our body? Do we, eating liver help that, or do we need to take supplements?
So for glutathione, things that you can do, the sulfur-containing vegetables, cabbage family, onion family vegetables will be very helpful. They will actually help induce the enzymes that manufacture glutathione. So that's helpful.
Great.
You could take a supplement, N-acetylcysteine. That's also helpful. The other sulfur-containing amino acids like lipoic acid, taurine, could be helpful. You have to be mindful that depending on your enzymes involved in handling sulfur, you may discover that when you try to take a higher dose of either sulfur vegetables or these sulfur amino acids, that you don't feel as well. And that may reflect how your enzymes manage the sulfur, and that you have to scale back down.
Good. So I know we're short on time because you're back to back with appointments, of course, because you're so knowledgeable of everything. But what are some suggestions we can give people on transitioning into our, most states are moving into phase 2 if they're not there already. And there's just such confusion with the media and the different organizations giving recommendations and rules of, how to keep safe when we start being exposed to other people.
So, the first thing I would say is, optimize your diet and lifestyle as thoroughly as you can, and realize that we don't want to transmit the virus. And so if you're wearing a mask, so if I'm at the hospital, I have a mask on and a face shield to decrease the risk of transmission. And because of that hospital standard, the hospital workers have far less coronavirus than anyone else. If I'm in public, if I'm shopping, I'm absolutely wearing a mask and paying attention to social space. And if I am going to meet someone, I'm going to expect them to be in a mask as well. If I can, I have my meetings outside. And so now with some of my neighbors and friends, we are getting together outside in fresh air We set up the chairs, 6 feet apart. So we're still getting our social bonding, but we're greatly reducing the probability that we're going to transmit the virus to one another.
So you think you need to do that because you might have the virus and you don't know it, that we have to be cautious of spreading it because we don't know if we have it?
That's certainly what the experience worldwide is showing, that yes, you will shed the virus. If you're coughing and sneezing symptomatic, you'll be shedding the virus. In the 24 hours before you're overtly symptomatic, you are absolutely shedding the virus. I'm incredibly mindful of the public health implications, which means I want to slow the transmission, and the personal health circumstance. When I do get it, and I recognize likely I will eventually get it, I want to be as healthy as possible.
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to be the person who brings it home, infects my daughter, and if I discovered that she would not do well. We don't know. So I prefer to be mindful of the public health and to slow the transmission. If you look at this economically, if we continue to spread it rapidly and end up again with millions and hundreds of millions of people infected, it will be a severe economic strain on the system, a severe healthcare crisis strain. And I don't think that's good for the economy. I don't think that's good for the public. Yeah. So I'll recognize that we're going to, as we open up, the spread will continue, but we want it to happen slowly. So that means wear your mask, stay 6 feet apart, recognize that, yep, some transmission is going to occur, but I will continue to work remotely, as many of us are, and to find ways to socialize that I can get that social nourishment without transmitting or having a very low rate of transmission.
Got it. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And just always appreciate getting your knowledge because it's so confusing out there. And I just turn off Facebook because there's...
Oh yeah, I got to turn that off.
You can have like 50 different opinions and answers to the same question, and it's overwhelming.
Yeah, yes. The key thing is this is a new virus.
Yeah.
We know we can have some conjectures, but the principles of slowing transmission, we've known about that for hundreds of years. We can certainly do that. In the principles of increased functional resilience, that's the kind of stuff that you and I know how to help people do. So that's where I want folks to go. Now, you have all of our links in terms of the resources we have for practitioners. Okay.
I will add everything in the show notes, and we'll put all the extra info we can. So we can hopefully everyone share this information, share this episode, because it is very confusing what to do. And everyone has different opinions, and, really keeping with people that you can trust, that it's real news, not fake news. And Dr. Wahls is one of those go-to people for me. So hopefully you guys can follow her and get more information. If you're a practitioner, she has an amazing practitioner program that's on my list to do next year. So I appreciate your time and energy.
We are just having another cohort of practitioners starting. So keep that.
Yes, for sure.
We'd love to have.
Yeah, I'd love to. Always need more information and help people. So thanks, Dr. Wahls. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for your information.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us to continue to grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.